As the church year draws to a close with this feast of Christ the King, we think of our own lives as Catholic Christians and when they draw to a close. For us, passing from this world to the next is the last act of living. And even for non-believers, death gives shape and direction to our lives. We can try and fool ourselves in popular culture. We just get younger and younger and then we all move to Florida. But that's not really the case, is it? This year my parents decided they weren't going to go to Florida. I said, why? She said, because it's filled with old people. I said, oh. I didn't say anything after that. But when we think about the final things, the last things of life, if we skirt the subject or stay away from it, even though it's inevitable, we rob ourselves the opportunity to prepare for that last act of living. When someone dies, what happens? We have a particular judgment. Don't think of it as negative, for we are filled with hope. We come to this Mass because this is where heaven and earth meet for us now and today. We come here because of the story of hope, born of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. We proclaim Christ the King because over the cross, in Latin, INRI, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. So that cross is really a throne. Suffering is part of life, and the part of life that has our complete attention, but joy is the destination of life. We believe in a God we call love. God is the beginning, and God is the end. So when we think of the particular judgment, think of it in a positive vein, the fulfillment of an individual's personal life. Our goal in living is to be face-to-face with God. The theologians call it a beatific vision, that deeply satisfying, beyond description experience of what we're made for. Yet we also know the reality of people who totally and deliberately reject God. We call that hell. The church time and again has declared a number of people as being in heaven, but has never declared anyone as being part of hell. We do, however, still believe in purgatory. The whole month of November, the envelopes that are on the altar are there for that process of being purged of that residual selfishness, that place of preparation for the beatific vision, for seeing God face to face. We think about the second coming of Christ. We think in terms of Hollywood and destruction and news headlines. But if we celebrate the first coming of Christ at Christmas, should we look forward to the second coming? We do believe in the resurrection of the dead, the whole person, body and soul, which is why we have a great deal of reverence for the person living and deceased. We bring their body to church or their ashes. We bury them in sacred ground. We're very serious about this world and the next world. But at the end of the world, the consummation of all things, the general judgment, we do as Catholics believe in vindication, that justice all will be set right. We also believe in punishment for the entirety of history, the consummation of all things and the perfection of the reign of God. Thank God we also believe in the universality of grace, that grace is offered to everyone. Everyone has the opportunity. There's a beginning and there's an end for all created reality, and that is God. When I lived at St. Thomas Seminary, we had one wing of the seminary was dedicated to retired priests, and the other wing was dedicated to seminarians, and they referred to it as the Old Testament and the New Testament. But occasionally we'd do a head count at dinner, and someone wasn't there, and we'd go up, and sure enough, one of the priests had passed. So I'd always bring seminarians with me. As we walked into the room, I pointed out, that's Father's ordination picture. There he is, brand new, dark-haired, young priest. And Father was sitting there in the chair. He had died, and his hand was on his prayer book. It was very moving. And I said to the seminarians, pointing to the picture of the ordination, that's the beginning, and this is the end of priesthood. And then one of them said to me, then I'm out of here. It's very honest. It's very good. People, if you will, lose it at death, because a lot of our culture is it's fine, it's antiseptic. And I found that with dealing with foreign-born students at University of Hartford, that they were used to it because people didn't go to the hospital. They passed away at home. Whereas we rush off to the hospital, and sometimes it happens, it's almost too sanitized. But yet, think of the times you've been at a wake or a funeral and say, we really should get together. We only come together for wakes, which is very true if you're Irish. My brother loves going to wakes. It's really kind of strange. He goes to more than me, which is odd. He needs a better social life. When I went to see my grandmother, who was 93, lived by herself, and had a much better social life than anybody in the family, she had gotten up that morning and was watching the TV Mass, as she always did. I went and knocked on the door. There was no answer, so I figured she must be off with her girlfriends, all of whom are in their 90s. So I went to Blackie's Hot Dogs in Cheshire to, continue my preparation for the Manchester Road Race. And I went there, ran into my cousin John, which is not usual. He says, "Hey, is Na home?" I said, No, she's gone somewhere. My uncle came in later that day, and she had died, sitting right there in the chair. And my mother said, through tears, she always prayed to St. Joseph for a happy death. And she got that. She died at home, and she'd watched the TV Mass. And I said, I thought St. Joseph just sold houses. And my mother said, no. So we should all probably pray for a happy death. It's a grace, not just for ourselves that die, but for our relatives. It was really a beautiful opportunity to gather together with family and friends. As we prepare for the end times, it's good. We prepare for lots of things, but we really can't ignore that. This past week, I've been working with the family, and it's just very, very difficult. They said, what are we going to tell the children? I said, well, if they're younger than 7, you don't have to say anything. Just say they've gone to heaven. But at 7, we recognize our mortality, and that's more difficult because, frankly, it scares even the big people, the adults. But if we confront it honestly, we have a story of hope. We're not like the non-believers say, it's the end of everything, it's the annihilation of everything. That's no fun. The reason we celebrate, the reason we rejoice is that we expect great things and are promised great things by the Lord Jesus. Again and again, the privilege of ministering among you is to hear your stories of hope, your stories of healing, your stories of coming together and recognizing the fact that we come together, heaven and earth, right here, right now, and we practice for life eternal. We're practicing Catholics. Eventually, we'll get it right. But as for now, we prepare in this week of Thanksgiving to give thanks for what we have received and look forward to what we will receive. May the souls of the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. Amen.